Black woman relaxed on the plane until the captain asked, terrified, "Any fighter pilot on board?" A wall of black storm clouds swallows the horizon, each lightning strike carving jagged scars across the night sky. The Boeing 747 shudders under the weight of turbulence, its metal frame groaning like a wounded beast. Inside the cockpit, every alarm screams for attention. Captain Andre Bennett grips the yoke, his knuckles white, sweat dripping down his temple. Beside him, First Officer Jason Mendez flicks switches, scanning failing instruments that refuse to steady. "Altitude's dropping fast," Jason mutters, his voice tight, eyes darting between the gauges and the storm outside. Another violent jolt slams the aircraft, hurling coffee cups and manuals to the floor. Andre gasps, his hand clutching his chest. His breaths grow ragged, eyes wide, before his body slumps against the controls. Jason shoves him back, heart racing. "Captain?" No response, only the plane's mechanical wail. Jason snatches the intercom, voice breaking through the cabin. "This is the first officer. We have a medical emergency. If there's anyone here who can fly, come forward now." His plea echoes down the aisles as terrified passengers grip their seats, the cabin lights flickering under the storm's fury. In the chaos of economy class, one passenger remains unnervingly calm. Tasha Brooks sits motionless, her eyes locked on the trembling cabin walls. While others sob and pray, her gaze carries the weight of someone who has faced death before and lived to tell it. Her breathing is steady, her hands unmoving on her lap, but her jaw tightens, like a soldier calculating her next move. The plane lurches again, children scream, and panic spreads like fire. All eyes dart toward the cockpit door, waiting for a hero. None notice the quiet woman in row 17 already deciding it will have to be her. The oxygen masks drop from overhead panels, swinging wildly as passengers gasp and scramble. Cries fill the cabin. Prayers rise above the thunder, and the aisles dissolve into chaos. Flight attendants struggle to maintain order, but fear spreads faster than their voices can calm it. In business class, one man stands out, not for courage but for arrogance. Preston Wells, wrapped in a tailored suit and entitlement, rises from his seat. His voice cuts through the panic like a blade. "This is madness!" A woman from economy class? And a black woman at that? "Are you all insane to even consider such a thing?" His words sting sharper than the turbulence. Passengers glance nervously between the cockpit and Preston, their fear searching for direction. Beside him, his wife, Rebecca Lang, clutches his arm, whispering for him to stop. Her eyes dart toward the frightened families around them, silently pleading for him not to make this worse. But Preston refuses to lower his voice. His anger grows with each tremor of the plane. Down the aisle, Tasha Brooks rises from her seat with measured steps. Every motion is deliberate, steady, as if she carries her own atmosphere of control. She does not respond to Preston's insults. She does not need to. The way she walks forward, eyes unshaken, spine unbent, speaks louder than any argument. When she reaches the front, the flight attendants hesitate, blocking the cockpit door. Tasha looks at them directly, her tone calm but firm. "Let me through. I am a former United States Air Force fighter pilot. If you want this aircraft on the ground in one piece, you need me in that seat." Her declaration slices through the chaos like lightning. The passengers fall into stunned silence. Whispers ripple down the rows. Some look relieved. Others stare in disbelief. And Preston Wells laughs, a harsh, mocking sound. "You expect us to trust our lives to a woman who could not even afford a business-class ticket?" "This is insanity!" Rebecca lowers her eyes, ashamed, tugging at her husband's sleeve. But Preston jerks his arm free, his face red with fury. The flight attendants exchange uncertain glances. Their training did not prepare them for this decision. Inside the cockpit, Jason Mendez listens to the storm hammering the fuselage, his hands shaking on the controls. Captain Bennett remains unconscious, his breathing shallow. Jason knows he cannot hold the plane steady much longer. The intercom clicks again, another desperate call for help. The door opens. Tasha steps inside. Her presence is quiet, but it steadies the air around her. Jason studies her face, the calm eyes, the steel in her posture. Doubt wrestles with desperation in his chest. Finally, he exhales and nods once. For everyone on board, trust has just shifted to the woman they least expected, and she knows that this was only the beginning of the fight. The cockpit door closes behind her, sealing out the cries from the cabin. Inside, the storm feels closer, the lightning flashes casting sharp shadows across the panels. Jason Mendez glances at Tasha, uncertainty written across his face. His hands tremble as he steadies the controls. Systems are failing across the board, he says quickly, eyes locked on the dials. Autopilot disengaged, hydraulics unstable. I cannot hold this alone. Tasha slides into the captain's seat, her movements smooth, practiced. She adjusts the headset, her fingers flying across the switches as if she had sat in this cockpit 100 times before. Jason watches, caught between relief and disbelief. A groan escapes from the floor behind them. Captain Andre Bennett lies pale and motionless, his breathing shallow and uneven. The cockpit door opens again, and Dr. Daniel Ruiz, a passenger who had volunteered earlier as a physician, steps in with a medical kit. He kneels beside the captain, checking his pulse, then shakes his head gravely. He is alive, but he is in no condition to command this aircraft. I can stabilize him for now, but he will not be flying again tonight. Jason swallows hard. The truth lands heavier than the turbulence. He looks at Tasha once more, silently acknowledging what this means. Outside the cockpit, Preston Wells's voice rises above the storm. His shouting pounds through the intercom, relentless. This is absurd. She's no real pilot. Find someone qualified before she kills us all. The noise grates against the fragile order Jason is trying to hold together. But Tasha does not flinch. She tunes out Preston's rage the way she once tuned out enemy fire. Her focus narrows to the panels, the failing instruments, and the storm clawing at the wings. First priority is communication, she states calmly. Her tone carries command, not suggestion. She switches the radio to a frequency so few have ever used that Jason does not immediately recognize it. Her fingers dance over the knobs until a sharp crackle fills the headset. United States Air Command, this is Civilian Flight 209, emergency status. Authentication code. She rattles off a sequence with precision that only a trained combat pilot would know. There is silence on the other end, a silence that feels longer than it is. Then a voice answers, clipped and firm. Commander Jack Callahan, Airbase Operations. Civilian Flight 209, repeat your last. Who are you? Tasha takes a breath, her jaw set. This is Brooks. Call sign Spectre. The room on the other side erupts into motion. In the background, voices rise, orders fly, equipment buzzes to life. Callahan's tone sharpens, disbelief laced with urgency. Spectre, confirm. Are you the Spectre? Jason stares at her, confusion deepening with every word. He whispers, who are you? Tasha does not look at him. Her eyes are locked on the horizon where the storm splits the night sky in two. In the command center, Callahan covers his microphone, turning to his staff. We have Spectre in the air. Repeat, Spectre is flying that jet. His team stares in shock before sprinting into action. Screens light up, maps flash, satellites pivot to track the storm. At the Pentagon, the alert races upward through ranks until it reaches General Malik Thompson. The general, known for his uncompromising presence, stands from his desk as the report is delivered. His expression tightens, a mixture of disbelief and certainty. If it is Spectre, then that aircraft has a chance. Put every nearby base on standby. Divert traffic. Clear a runway. Back in the cockpit, Jason listens as Callahan's voice returns, steadier now with a note of respect. Spectre, you have control. Air Command is with you. What do you need? Tasha finally glances at Jason, her voice low but unwavering. We are going to bring this bird home. Another violent jolt rocks the plane, alarms shrieking in protest. Jason grips the controls beside her, sweat rolling down his forehead. The storm shows no mercy, and Preston's muffled outrage continues behind the door. But for the first time since the nightmare began, the cockpit feels different. Not safe, not calm, but steady, anchored by the presence of the pilot the world thought it had lost, a legend hidden in plain sight. The escalation had begun, and the storm was far from finished. The storm roared louder, shaking the jet as if it were a toy in the hands of a giant. A flash of lightning illuminated the wings, just as a deafening bang echoed through the cabin. Warning lights burst across the control panel. Jason's eyes widened. Engine 2 just failed. His voice cracked with the weight of terror. Alarms screamed. Oxygen masks dropped in the cabin. The sound of passengers gasping and crying filtered through the cockpit door. The plane began to lose altitude faster than Jason could correct. Tasha Brooks adjusted the throttles with steady hands, her calm in stark contrast to the chaos around her. "We can fly on 3 engines," she said firmly, "but this storm is going to make it brutal." In the cabin, Preston Wells was on his feet, his voice booming above the panic. "This is suicide! We are trusting our lives to a woman from economy class. She will kill us all!" He shoved past a flight attendant, his face red with rage. Rebecca Lang clutched his arm, begging him to sit down, but Preston jerked away. "This is madness, Rebecca." "Madness!" The tension broke when Rebecca's own fear transformed into fury. She stood, her voice slicing through the cabin. "Enough, Preston. You are not saving anyone. Sit down and shut up before you make this worse." Her words silenced him for the first time. His face twisted, but he sank into his seat, defeated by the truth in her tone. Back in the cockpit, Jason wiped sweat from his brow. Pressure is dropping, passengers are panicking, and turbulence is only getting worse. What do we do? Tasha's eyes stayed on the instruments, her voice steady. "We do what no one thinks is possible." Jason turned to her in shock. "What are you saying?" She looked at him directly, her gaze unshaken. "Controlled spiral descent. Through the eye of the storm. Fighter jet maneuver." Jason blinked, stunned. That has never been done in a jet this size. Her fingers were already moving across the controls, setting up the sequence. "Then tonight will be the first." The radio crackled. Commander Jack Callahan's voice carried tension. "Spectre, repeat your last. Did you say spiral descent?" "That is not possible for a 747, Tasha replied without hesitation. "It is possible if you know how to read the air currents." "I need clearance now." There was silence for a heartbeat, then background noise of scrambling staff. Jack's voice returned, urgent but cautious. "Spectre, this maneuver has never been logged in civilian aviation. Risk level is catastrophic." Another voice cut in, deeper, commanding. "General Malik Thompson. If anyone can do it, it is Spectre. She has pulled aircraft out of worse storms than this. Give her the airspace." Jason stared at the radio, then at Tasha. "General Thompson just put his faith in you." Tasha adjusted the yoke, her voice low but firm. "Then let us prove him right." The jet lurched violently as she angled it toward the heart of the storm. Passengers screamed as lightning tore through the clouds outside. In the cabin, flight attendants gripped seats, praying silently. Preston buried his face in his hands, Rebecca sitting rigid beside him. In the command center, radar screens showed the impossible path Tasha was carving. Controllers stared in disbelief as the massive aircraft tilted into a controlled spiral, descending faster than any commercial jet had ever dared. "Spectre," Jack called again, his voice tight. "Your descent rate is exceeding safe parameters. How are you holding this stable?" Tasha's answer was calm, almost cold. "Experience, and the will to survive." The storm howled, the jet spiraled, and the world held its breath. The turning point had arrived. There was no going back. The cockpit was a storm of noise. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, warning signals screamed across every panel. Jason's hands trembled on the controls, sweat running down his forehead, his voice breaking as he shouted, "We are losing altitude!" But beside him, Tasha was steady. Her eyes locked on the instruments, her breathing calm, every move precise. Her fingers danced across switches and levers with the sharpness of someone who had done this in the darkest skies before. The plane shook violently, passengers screamed, oxygen masks dangled from the ceiling. In the middle of the chaos, Preston's voice cracked. He stared at Tasha with wide, disbelieving eyes. This woman he had mocked, insulted, and dismissed was holding the fate of every soul on board in her hands. He muttered under his breath, as if speaking to himself, She is not panicking." Rebecca leaned forward, her face pale but resolute, whispering to the terrified passengers around her. "She knows what she is doing." "Trust her." Jason clung to the co-pilot's seat, his voice trembling. We will not make it through this storm. This descent is suicide. Look at me, Jason, follow my lead. We will make it through." And then silence, not outside but within her mind. For a brief moment, time itself seemed to slow. A young Tasha in crisp Air Force uniform, running across the airfield under blazing sun, her jet slicing through the skies during training, a call sign painted across the nose, Spectre. Her hand saluting at a military funeral, medals shining on her chest but pain heavy in her eyes. Mission after mission, sacrifice after sacrifice, always steady, always unbroken. A commander's voice from years ago echoes, "You are not just a pilot, Tasha. You are the one they will remember when hope is gone." Back in the cockpit, her hands moved with the memory of every mission. She pulled the yoke with strength and control, guiding the massive jet into the spiral descent. The storm raged outside, lightning flashing across the windshield, rain hammering against the glass. Jason screamed as alarms lit up. Preston gripped his seat so hard his knuckles turned white. Passengers clutched each other, whispering prayers. And then, slowly, unbelievably, the nose of the plane leveled out. The clouds thinned. The lightning faded. The blinding darkness of the storm gave way to soft golden rays of dawn breaking through the horizon. The cabin fell silent. For the first time in what felt like eternity, the screaming stopped. Children lifted their heads. Parents wept into their hands. Passengers looked around in stunned disbelief. Jason's chest heaved as he realized they had survived the worst of it. Preston, still trembling, stared at Tasha as if seeing her for the very first time. The man who had laughed at her, ridiculed her, now had no words left. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Rebecca squeezed his hand, whispering softly, "Now do you see?"
"She saved us."
Tasha sat upright, hand steady on the controls, her jaw set with quiet determination. She did not need applause. She did not need thanks. She was a pilot, and this was her duty. The plane glided smoothly now, cutting through calm skies. The storm was behind them, and for everyone on board, a truth settled deep in their hearts. They owed their lives to the woman they had once doubted. The runway lights of the nearby airbase glowed in the distance, a beacon cutting through the fading storm. Inside the cockpit, Tasha's eyes narrowed, her focus unshakable. Every passenger, every crew member, every heartbeat on board, all of them rested on her next decisions. Jason's hands were shaking as he glanced between her and the instruments. "We are low on fuel. The landing gear is unstable." Tasha's voice was calm, sharp, and commanding. "We will bring them down safely. Follow my lead." Her fingers moved with precision, flipping switches, steadying the descent. The giant jet groaned and rattled, but under her control, it felt like an extension of her own body. A fighter pilot's instincts guiding a machine far larger than anything she had flown before. Outside, soldiers and emergency crews rushed into position on the runway. Spotlights illuminated the night sky. Among them, Commander Jack Callahan stood tall, his headset pressed to his ear, his voice breaking with emotion as he gave updates. "She's lining up for approach. Spectre is bringing them home." Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was unbearable. Children cried softly into their parents' arms. Strangers held hands, united in shared fear. Rebecca whispered prayers, her eyes never leaving the aisle where Tasha had walked minutes earlier. Preston sat frozen, his face pale, his arrogance shattered. The memory of his own cruel words replayed in his mind, mocking her, doubting her, belittling her. And now, the very life he clung to depended on her strength. For the first time in his life, Preston Wells had nothing to say. Back in the cockpit, the jet descended, flaps down, gear locked. Jason called out, his voice steadier now, reassured by Tasha's calm presence. The runway stretched ahead, a lifeline waiting in the dark. "Brace for landing!" Jason's voice echoed through the cabin. Passengers gripped the seats, eyes squeezed shut, hearts pounding. The jet's wheels screeched against the tarmac, sparks flying. The fuselage shuddered violently, but Tasha held firm, guiding the beast of a machine with steel in her hands. The storm was behind them, but the danger was not over. She pressed hard on the controls, aligning perfectly with the runway. One final jolt, and then silence. The plane rolled forward, slowing, until at last it came to a full, controlled stop. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but stunned quiet. And then the cabin erupted. Cheers, sobs, laughter, applause that shook the walls. People hugged strangers. Children clapped. Some passengers fell to their knees in tears of relief. Jason let out a breath he had been holding for what felt like forever. He turned to Tasha, eyes glistening, and whispered, You saved us all." His voice broke as he pulled her into a brief, grateful embrace. Down the aisle, Rebecca covered her face with her hands, overcome with emotion. Preston stared blankly, the reality finally crashing down on him. His arrogance, his insults, His disbelief, all of it, stood in sharp contrast to the truth. The black woman he had mocked, the woman he had dismissed, was the very reason he was still alive. His lips moved, but no words came. For a man who had always believed he owned every room, every moment, silence was his only confession. On the runway, emergency vehicles surrounded the jet. Soldiers stood at attention as the passengers disembarked, their eyes full of awe as Tasha appeared at the door, silhouetted against the cabin light. General Malik Thompson, watching from the command post, removed his cap and said softly, "Welcome back, Spectre." For everyone there, it was clear, this was not just a landing. It was a legend reborn, and for Tasha Brooks, it was a reminder of who she truly was. Not just a former pilot, not just a forgotten veteran, but a woman who carried lives in her hands and delivered them safely through the storm.